Singapore, a small dot on the world map. No oil, no gold, no massive farmland, and yet it's one of the richest countries on earth. Its GDP per person, among the highest in the world. Its skyline, straight out of a sci-fi movie. Its streets so clean you could almost eat off them. But here's the real question. How did a tiny tropical island, once a swampy fishing village, become richer than countries hundreds of times its size? Stay with me, because the answer is not just about money. It's about vision, it's about survival, and it's about playing the game of nations better than anyone else. Chapter 1. From muddy shores to global stage. In 1965, Singapore faced a moment that could have broken it forever. After a short and tense union, Malaysia decided to expel Singapore. The separation was sudden. Overnight, this small island was on its own. It was a nation in name, but without the tools most countries rely on to survive. The challenges were staggering. Jobs were scarce and the economy was stagnant. The port city, once a colonial trading post, had lost much of its former glory. There was no army to defend it, no oil or gas to fuel industry, and not even enough land to grow its own food. Fresh water had to be piped in from Malaysia, and basic resources, from building sand to energy, came from abroad. International observers predicted disaster. How could a tiny, swampy island with barely 2 million people stand on its own? It was a fragile newborn in a world of giants. But Singapore's leaders saw the crisis differently. They recognized that being small could also mean being nimble. Instead of lamenting what they lacked, they focused on what they could control: political stability, efficient governance, and a long-term plan for growth. The mood on the streets was tense but determined. Citizens were told the truth about the challenges ahead, and they were asked to work together. What came next was nothing short of extraordinary. Singapore would not only survive, but would rise to become a symbol of resilience and reinvention. Chapter 2. Leadership that refused to lose. When Lee Kuan Yew took the helm as Singapore's first prime minister, the odds were stacked heavily against him. He wasn't a leader chasing popularity. He was a strategist, a fighter, and above all, a realist. Lee understood that survival was not guaranteed. Failure would mean Singapore becoming irrelevant, swallowed by the economic and political tides of bigger nations. From the very start, Lee and his team, men like Goh Keng Swee and S. Rajaratnam, crafted a bold vision. Singapore would be a nation the world needed. They studied the success stories of other small but thriving economies, cherry-picking ideas that could work for their unique situation. Every policy was practical, not political. They knew natural resources wouldn't save them, so they focused on their people. Education became a national weapon. English was adopted as the working language to connect with global markets, while trade and diplomacy were aggressively pursued. Lee also demanded discipline, both from citizens and from the government itself. Corruption would be crushed, meritocracy would be enforced, and long-term planning would replace short-term thinking. His style was sometimes called strict, even authoritarian, but it got results. In Lee's eyes, Singapore was not just an island, it was a business, a brand, and a fortress. Every decision, from urban planning to foreign policy, was designed to give this tiny country a big voice in the world. And as history shows, he didn't just keep Singapore afloat, he turned it into a model others would try to copy. Chapter 3. Location. On the world map, Singapore might look like a speck, but that speck is placed in one of the most valuable positions on Earth. It sits right at the southern tip of the Malay Peninsula, guarding the entrance to the Malacca Strait, a narrow waterway through which roughly a quarter of the world's traded goods pass. Oil from the Middle East, electronics from East Asia, grain from Australia, almost everything moving between the Pacific and Indian Oceans can pass here. Lee Kuan Yew's government understood this was their golden ticket. Geography had given Singapore a strategic advantage, but without the right infrastructure, it would be wasted. So they invested heavily in building the Port of Singapore, transforming it into one of the most advanced and efficient ports in the world. Customs procedures were streamlined to be lightning fast and free from the bribes and delays common in other ports. Shipping companies quickly realized they could save time and money by stopping in Singapore, refueling, repairing, and transferring cargo. By the late 1970s and into the 1980s, Singapore wasn't just a convenient stop, It was a global shipping hub. The nation turned its location into a business model, acting like the ultimate middleman between East and West. It was as if Singapore had set up the world's busiest cash register at the crossroad of two oceans, and every passing ship rang it. Chapter 4. A magnet for business. Singapore didn't wait for investors to discover it. It went out and sold itself to the world. The government understood that to grow fast, it needed foreign money, foreign technology, and foreign expertise. So it created an environment where global companies would want to be. Taxes were kept low and predictable, making long-term planning easier for corporations. The legal system was transparent and based on English common law, giving investors confidence that contracts would be honored. On top of that, the government's zero-tolerance policy on corruption meant deals were clean and predictable. No hidden fees, no shady approvals. Infrastructure was another key weapon. Singapore built modern roads, one of the world's most efficient airports, and a port that could handle the biggest container ships. Telecommunications were upgraded early, ensuring businesses had the fastest and most reliable connections possible. To sweeten the deal, the Economic Development Board, EDB, actively courted multinational corporations, offering incentives, clear regulations, and tailor-made solutions for their needs. This wasn't random growth, it was strategic attraction. Before long, companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, ExxonMobil, Shell, and countless banks made Singapore their Asian headquarters. The financial sector boomed, manufacturing thrived, and high-paying jobs followed. The iconic skyline, glass towers reflecting tropical sunlight, didn't rise from chance. It was the result of a clear, calculated plan. Make Singapore the safest bet in Asia for anyone with money to invest. Chapter 5. Education as a weapon. From the very beginning, Singapore's leaders saw education not just as a social service, but as a survival tool. Without oil, minerals, or vast farmland, the only real resource Singapore had was its people. And if those people were going to compete with the world's best, they needed world-class skills. The government poured resources into building a rigorous, structured education system. Schools emphasized discipline, punctuality, and excellence. Teachers were carefully selected and well-trained, ensuring that quality was consistent across the country. English became the main working language, an intentional move to connect Singapore to global business and diplomacy. But students also learned their mother tongue, Mandarin, Malay, or Tamil, preserving cultural heritage while staying globally relevant. The curriculum was heavy on math, science, and engineering, preparing students for industries that demanded precision and innovation. Vocational training was also prioritized, ensuring that those not pursuing university still had valuable, in-demand skills. Education didn't end at graduation. Continuous learning programs kept the workforce adaptable in a fast-changing world. The result? A population that was not only literate, but economically valuable, the kind of workers multinational companies actively sought out. Higher skills led to higher wages. Higher wages meant stronger consumer spending and a healthier economy. In Singapore's case, classrooms became the first factories of economic growth, producing the human capital that powered its transformation from a struggling island to a global powerhouse. Chapter 6. From Swamp to Smart City. Singapore's transformation wasn't accidental. It was the result of meticulous urban planning. With a land area of just over 700 square kilometers, every meter had to be used with purpose. The government treated space like gold, balancing housing, industry, green spaces, and transport networks in a way that few cities have managed. Public housing, built under the Housing and Development Board, HDB, became one of Singapore's proudest achievements. These flats were not only affordable, but also safe, modern, and well-maintained. Over 80% of Singaporeans live in them, proving that quality housing doesn't have to be a luxury for the few. Transportation was designed for efficiency. An integrated MRT subway system, clean and punctual buses, and well-maintained roads that keep traffic flowing. Even the iconic Changi Airport is a model of planning, consistently ranked among the world's best. Safety is another cornerstone. Strict laws and effective policing have kept crime rates among the lowest anywhere, making streets safe to walk day or night. Add to that the push toward becoming a smart nation, with cashless payments, sensor-driven traffic systems, and tech-based public services, and you have a city that feels futuristic but still practical. This combination of order, safety, and innovation didn't just make life better for locals. It sent a powerful message to the world. Singapore is a safe place for your family, your business, and your money. And in the global economy, that kind of trust is priceless. Chapter 7. Zero corruption, maximum trust. Corruption has destroyed more economies than war ever could. It robs nations from the inside, draining resources, scaring away investors, and breeding public mistrust. Singapore's founders knew that if they wanted to attract serious global business, they had to make corruption almost impossible. The government set strict anti-corruption laws, backed by the powerful Corrupt Practices Investigation Bureau, CPIB, an independent body with the authority to investigate anyone, no matter how high their position. There were no untouchables in Singapore. But it wasn't just about punishment, it was about prevention. Public servants, including ministers and civil officers, were paid salaries competitive with the private sector. This removed the temptation of side deals and made honesty the smarter career choice. The result was a culture where clean governance became the norm, not the exception. Businesses knew that deals would be honored, contracts would be enforced, and decisions would be made transparently, not bought under the table. For foreign investors, this was gold. In a region where corruption could slow down shipments, add hidden costs, or change laws overnight, Singapore stood out as a safe, reliable partner. This reputation for integrity has lasted decades, turning Singapore into one of the most trusted business environments in the world. A place where both citizens and investors know the rules are fair and the playing field is level. Chapter 8. Turning tiny into mighty. Singapore's small size and lack of natural resources could have been a curse, but it turned them into a challenge to outsmart. Since it couldn't dig wealth out of the ground, it decided to create wealth through value-added trade. The strategy was simple but brilliant. Import raw materials, transform them into something more valuable, then export them at a profit. This model allowed Singapore to be part of global supply chains without owning a single mine or oil field. One of the best examples is the oil industry. Singapore doesn't produce crude oil, but it is one of the world's largest oil refining hubs. Giant refineries on Jurong Island process millions of barrels each year, turning raw crude into high-grade fuels and petrochemicals used across Asia. The same applies to electronics. Singapore imports components, assembles and tests them with precision, and sends them out to the world. In chemicals, pharmaceuticals, and even financial services, the pattern is the same. Take something basic, make it better, and sell it back. This approach not only brings in revenue, but also creates highly skilled jobs and attracts foreign investment. It's a clever way of turning a resource shortage into an innovation engine, proving that being small doesn't mean being weak if you know how to multiply the value of what passes through your hands. Chapter 9. The Billionaire Playground. In the modern world, money flows to where it feels safest. And for the ultra-wealthy, Singapore is that safe harbor. Its political stability, strong currency, low crime rates, and business-friendly tax system have made it one of the top financial centers on the planet. Here, billionaires from around the globe set up family offices, invest in property, and manage their fortunes without fear of sudden policy shifts or economic instability. The Marina Bay district is the glittering face of this wealth. Luxury hotels tower over the skyline, high-end boutiques display the world's most exclusive brands, and super yachts glide into marinas like floating palaces. Michelin-starred restaurants cater to an elite global crowd, and world-class events, from Formula One races to international art fairs, add to the glamour. But unlike many wealthy cities, Singapore's riches don't exist in a bubble. The government has ensured that prosperity benefits the wider population. Public housing remains high quality, clean, and affordable. Healthcare is efficient and accessible. Education is world-class and heavily subsidized. This balance is key to Singapore's success. It attracts the world's richest investors while still giving ordinary citizens a high standard of living. In other words, it's not a playground for billionaires at the expense of everyone else. It's a country where wealth and stability feed into each other, lifting the whole society. Chapter 10. Crisis, Opportunity. For Singapore, crises aren't roadblocks, they're pressure tests. And time after time, it has emerged not just intact, but stronger. This resilience comes from a mix of careful planning, quick decision-making, and the ability to adapt without hesitation. When the 1997 Asian financial crisis crippled many of its neighbors, Singapore's strong banking regulations and healthy foreign reserves kept its currency stable and its economy from spiraling. Confidence in Singapore remained high, and investors saw it as a safe place to keep their capital. During the 2008 global recession, trade volumes fell sharply. But Singapore responded with swift stimulus measures, investing in infrastructure, supporting businesses, and retraining workers. By the time other economies were still struggling, Singapore was already back on its growth path. Then came COVID-19, a crisis that shook the entire planet. Singapore reacted fast, implementing aggressive contact tracing, using technology to monitor outbreaks, and providing targeted financial aid to both citizens and businesses. It even turned empty convention centers into temporary hospitals, ensuring the healthcare system never collapsed. The secret? Singapore treats every challenge as a chance to innovate, improve systems, and future-proof the nation. Instead of just bracing for impact, it adjusts its sails, ensuring the winds of change push it forward, not backward. Chapter 11. Lessons the world can learn. Singapore's journey from a struggling island to a global powerhouse isn't just a story, it's a playbook. Its success boils down to principles that any nation, big or small, can adapt. Smart leadership meant having visionaries who thought decades ahead, not just until the next election. Decisions were made for the long-term good of the country, even if they were unpopular in the short run. Strategic location was maximized to its fullest. Geography gave Singapore an advantage, but it was infrastructure, efficiency, and reliability that turned it into a world trade hub. Clean government built trust at home and abroad. Businesses knew the rules wouldn't change overnight and that deals would be honored without hidden costs. Skilled people became the nation's true natural resource. Through world-class education and continuous training, Singapore ensured its workforce stayed relevant in a fast-changing global economy. Business-friendly rules attracted investment and innovation. By keeping taxes low, regulations clear, and corruption near zero, the country became a magnet for global companies. Adaptability kept Singapore ahead in times of crisis, turning threats into opportunities for reform and growth. The lesson? You don't need vast land, huge populations, or abundant resources to succeed. Wealth is not just about what you have, it's about what you do with it. Singapore proves that with discipline, foresight, and unity, even the smallest dot on the map can shine the brightest. The next time you trace your finger across a world map and land on Singapore, you might have to squint. It's barely more than a pinprick in the vast blue of Southeast Asia. Yet this tiny nation commands the respect of countries hundreds of times its size. Its power doesn't come from sprawling land or deep wells of natural resources. There are no gold mines, no endless wheat fields, no oceans of oil beneath its soil. Instead, Singapore's wealth was built from the ground up, crafted through vision, discipline, and the unwavering belief that smallness is not weakness. It mastered the art of turning disadvantages into advantages, using brains over brawn and trust over brute force. It proved that stability is a magnet for wealth, that education can be a nation's greatest investment, and that smart planning beats blind luck. Today, Singapore stands as a living reminder that greatness isn't measured in square kilometers. It's measured in willpower, adaptability, and the courage to aim higher than anyone thought possible. And that is why this little red dot on the map has become one of the brightest lights in the global economy.